It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sport. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Indeed it does. Good to have you with us on this Monday edition of the show. We got a lot to do over the next 60 minutes. Sam Yarnell will be by in about 10 minutes, get his reaction to our top story of the day, which we'll get to in just a moment. Some news from college football. The NBA play-in and playoffs are set. There was a NASCAR race this weekend as they get ready to go into their bye week, and Kyle Larson won it. We'll talk about that. But we start things out in golf because that was the story of the weekend in sports. And who better to talk about it with than our man Ryan Ballengee, who does a great job, Golf News Net, and hangs out with us on the program today to talk about Rory McIlroy finally completing his quest for the Grand Slam by winning the Masters yesterday. And boy, it was in typical Rory fashion. It's never very easy, is it, Ryan?
No, I mean, that was probably the most dramatic roller coaster of a final round I've ever experienced in a major championship. And I think you probably wouldn't have it any other way if you were a Rory McIlroy fan yesterday. I mean, obviously you'd want it to be a whole lot easier than it turned out to be, but that encapsulates the 11-ish year wait that McIlroy had to endure between winning the 2014 PGA Championship for a second consecutive major and the 2025 Masters to complete the career Grand Slam.
And look, we're talking about, I mean, he could have won this thing by 5 or 6 shots just by making a few putts, let alone the 4 double bogeys, which is a record for somebody who wins the Masters. I don't know. I mean, how do you sort of, it really does feel like the final 4 or 5 holes of this thing really was a microcosm of his entire career.
Yeah. I mean, I start out at number 1, double bogey the first, you were up 2. Now you're square, you're down 1 after 2, you're up 3 after 4. I mean, that roller coaster enough was plenty. And then the monster shot from the left side on 7 to set up a kick in, which is unbelievable. And then, 11 being stuck on the collar, almost kind of like Fred Couples in 92. The grass was longer on the bank in 1992 on number 12. And then 13 and just inexplicably bad third shot with a wedge playing to the right of the flag. I don't even know why he did that. I mean, I heard his explanation. It doesn't make any sense. But then to give the lead away, and then you've got Rose and Ludwig Aubert hanging around, and all of a sudden you're down because you've bogeyed 14, which is a very easy hole relative to the others at Augusta National. And then probably one of the best master shots you'll ever see at 15 to set up what should have probably been an eagle, but it was a birdie.
Misses that.
Then inexplicably lays up on 17 to almost 200 yards, and then hits an 8-iron to a kick-in, and then you think, okay, all he's got to do is par 18. And then he hits the fairway, does the right thing, and sure enough, he fans a wedge from 125 into the side bunker on the right, which I can't even fathom him doing that. Makes the bogey, goes to the playoff, and then plays the best complete hole you could ever play of 18, right down the middle, wedge to 4 feet, birdie, Grand Slam. I mean, if that's not the last 11 years in a nutshell, that's it right there.
It really is. Man, you feel for Justin Rose, who played, who really, of everybody who played on Sunday, he deserved to win. He played the round you're supposed to play to win a major on a Sunday, and for the second straight major, he finds himself second place.
Yeah, I mean, he opens with 65. He takes over the all-time first-round Masters lead mark from Jack Nicklaus in doing it.
Yeah.
He plays the round of the day on Sunday when I'm pretty sure everybody counted him out. He makes the incredible putt on the 72nd hole to ultimately force extra holes. He did nothing wrong on the playoff hole. He did the right thing. He gave himself a good look. He used the slope, just didn't go in. McIlroy was just a touch better, and he finds himself losing back-to-back majors to a guy who won 2 majors last year, the best player of his generation in Rory McIlroy on Sunday. It's tough, but it's also pretty incredible that at 43 and 44 years old, Justin Rose is still playing some of the best golf of his entire life.
Yeah, he is. Where do you put Rory? And I know he's still so young. I mean, that's what we all forget, because he came on the scene at 18 years old. That he mentioned yesterday, 17 years after playing his first Masters. Here he is at 35. Where do we talk about him right now in the pantheon sort of this game Where is he? Where is his place right now, Ryan?
I mean, I think best of his generation is the proper way to put it. He does have 5 majors. Koepka has 5. His 5 came in 2 majors, right? It's come in the U.S. Open and the PGA Championship. Not to slight those majors compared to the others, but winning all 4 makes you a more complete player. And McIlroy has won all 4. There's only 5 other guys that have ever done that, and he's the first guy in a quarter century to do it. So that, I think, solidifies him as the best player of his generation. He's also the greatest probably what-if story this side of Tiger Woods in what could have been maybe even bigger what-if than Phil Mickelson. You know, if Tiger Woods didn't exist, does Phil Mickelson win 10, 12 majors? Maybe. I don't know. But I feel like if Rory McIlroy wasn't in his own head, he probably would have won 10 by now. So I think it's kind of still to be determined, right? There's still probably another 5 to 7 years of McIlroy's solid years left to maybe contend and win more major championships. That gives him a runway of 20 to 28 more majors, and we'll see where that leaves him. I think a lot of people think, okay, he's exercised the biggest demon of them all. Surely this will mean more major championships, especially because we think of your early to mid 30s as kind of your sweet spot to win your majors, historically speaking. So maybe there's more in there, maybe there's not. But if this is if this is the 5th and final major championship of his career, I still think he's probably the best of his generation.
Is he top 4, top 5 all time if this is the end? Not that I think it will be.
No.
He's gonna win. He's gonna win more majors. But I mean, where is he?
Top 10, I think, is fair. Maybe top 15. I mean, you got to think about.
But even when only 6 have won the career Grand Slam here?
But if you think of all the guys who won the career Grand Slam,
sure,
he has the fewest majors by far. I mean, Gene Saracen's a different case, baby.
Sure.
Different era. But Hogan, Gary Player, I mean, those guys are at 9. Jack, obviously, 18. Tiger, 15. And then here's Rory at 5. I mean, obviously the career Grand Slam's a big deal, but I think there has to be a little bit more mass to the number of majors to it to kind of put you in that same conversation. Because, yeah, I mean, Arnie won one more major. He came up a PGA championship short. Phil Mickelson has won a half dozen majors. He's a U.S. Open short. Does that, you put the Rory above them because he won all 4 but has one less? You know, the mathematics of majors and the distribution of them is probably a long debate we're going to have for a long time to come.
Ryan Ballengee, Golf News Net. He does a great job there. Always appreciate you coming on with us whenever we have a big golf story, and this weekend certainly was one. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
Welcome back to the show. We talked about Rory McIlroy's win at the Masters with Ryan Ballengee. Now let's talk about it with this guy, the one and only Sam Yarnell. Joins us on the show each and every day. Rory McIlroy, Sam Yarnell, finally completes his Grand Slam quest by winning the Masters. You know, a lot of people will look at the missed putt on 18 and kind of, you know, talk about what that sort of set up. And it felt like in about a half-hour period, everything that has been Rory McIlroy's quest for this Grand Slam and completing this, you know, this Masters quest, if you will, it was all right there for you in the final half hour of that broadcast.
Yeah, it was obviously an emotional day at Augusta, Jason, as it always tends to be on Master Sunday, but especially so when you have the 6th player ever to complete the career Grand Slam. It was obviously really special to watch, and you know, it's always important when you get to sit there on a Sunday and watch, you know, sports history be made right in front of your very eyes. But I do think that there is an element to this tournament that was, you know, who couldn't choke it away the most.
Amazing.
Rather than who actually took it by the reins and won it. You mentioned the putt on 18. Obviously, Justin Rose having a rough Saturday, coming all the way back on Sunday to make that long putt on 18 and force the playoff eventually with Rory. Bryson choking it all away, Scotty not having a great weekend overall. I do think that there was a lot of the bigger guys that we expected to really be in contention with Rory come Sunday just not playing up to their full ability. And I don't think necessarily enough people talked about that. But, again, the first person in a quarter century to complete the career Grand Slam, one of 6 ever, one of 2 to do it in the last 75 years. It truly is special what we're seeing and what we've seen yesterday with Rory McIlroy. And I do think that, when we talk about the game of golf, obviously Rory McIlroy has cemented his name as an all-time great and a household name forever.
Yeah, and look, I mean, one of only 6 golfers to accomplish it. I do feel like this tournament, though, especially on Sunday, late in that final round, it really did have the feel of first person to make a putt over 10 feet was going to win this thing. And Justin Rose felt like the embodiment of that when he sinks the long putt on 18, which ultimately forces the playoff because McIlroy obviously bogeys on 18 in the final round to send us to the playoff. And boy, man, look, this is Rory's day, and we talked about it with Ryan Ballengee, and we talked about it with you here in the first few minutes of this segment. But, man, you got to feel for Justin Rose. I mean, back-to-back majors now, the Open, and now here at the Masters, where he finishes runner-up. And you're talking about, one of the greats of the game. And it honestly felt like he played the best golf of anybody on Sunday and deserved to win this thing the most.
Yeah, and obviously you shoot a 65 on Thursday, a 66 on Sunday at the Masters. I think you would expect to win that tournament 9 times out of 10. But quite frankly, again, that's why they call Saturday at the Masters moving day, Jason. Yep. Right? Because Justin Rose shoots a 75, and little did he know that's basically what did him in and lost him this tournament. And obviously the tournament is won and lost on Sunday, but Justin Rose came about as close as you can to losing himself that tournament on Saturday, shooting that 75. And at the end of the day, I think that that's very funny because we're talking about a 75. We're talking about 3 over par being what did Justin Rose in to losing this tournament. A round of 3 over par. I think that that's incredible. But again, you look across the board and that's kind of the story, right? Like there are a couple of guys who will shoot in the high 60s a couple of days, but you're really lucky if you can keep your score right around 70 at this golf course.
Boy, and didn't it feel like, early in that round where it looked like the wheels were sort of coming off for Rory, the double bogey, then the par on 2. DeChambeau has the lead by 1 after just 2 holes. And Bryson DeChambeau, it felt like, was sort of on his way, but his inability to dial in the irons is really what cost him in this final round. He just could not get his distance control right. And you heard the announcers on the broadcast, Jim Nantz and Trevor Immelman and all these guys sort of talking about it. He just could not dial in those irons from very makeable distances for a guy that typically is very good at that. This was a tough day for Bryson DeChambeau.
It was, and it was tough from the first tee shot. So obviously, Masters Sunday, your boy was locked in right there at 240 when the first group, 230 when the first groups went off, or when the leaders went off, I should say, all the way through the end of the tournament. And I believe, so Rory teed off first on 1. This is so niche, but Rory teed off first on 1, hit his tee shot onto the right side bunker, into the right side bunker halfway up the hill on that first hole at Augusta. And I think all of us who had bet on Bryson pre-tournament thought, wow, look at this. Here we go. This is how it starts. Rory choking it away, starting off on hole 1. This guy's going to shoot 10 over today. He's going to finish the tournament even par. And then Bryson steps up and absolutely yanks his tee shot 30 yards left. And that's when you kind of knew all bets were off. I do want to say, because you got to feel for all the guys who went through it yesterday. Ludwig Oberg played an incredible tournament.
Yeah. Fell apart.
Triple bogeyed 18 on hole 72. Mm-hmm. It ended up costing him
about
$514,500 in winnings. A triple bogey worth $500,000.
Yeah. If you think your Sunday round with your friends at the local pitch and putt cost you money when you missed that putt on 18, Ludwig Oberg has a call for you. And say this too, and I mentioned this with Ryan. Scotty Scheffler could not have played worse and still finished top 5 in this tournament. I mean, that's remarkable to think about. He could not have played worse, and he finished top 5. It's mind-blowing for me. The next thing for Rory is trying to complete the Golden Slam. An Olympic gold medal is the only thing missing for him now. He's won the Players. He's won all 4 majors. One of only 3 players to do that. So we'll see in LA in 2028 if Rory McIlroy can complete the Golden Slam. That's the only thing left for him. And he, I mean, that's it. He'd be alone on that list.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see where they play that. Obviously, LACC, a course that he's familiar with. I think a lot of people just realized, like me, that Tiger Woods has never won a gold medal. Yeah. That's crazy.
That's what happens when they decide to launch golf, one of the oldest sports in the world, in the Olympics, like only recently. I don't know. It's weird. We're coming back. Welcome back to the show. Let's talk some NBA. Playoffs are set. Play-in is set. The table is set. After a, word Sam would use, interesting weekend in the NBA. Let's talk about the playoffs and the play-in, which will get underway on Tuesday, Sam. I'm shocked the Warriors are in the play-in. If you had told me 2 weeks ago that the Warriors would be a play-in team, I would have probably had you urinating into a cup. Sorry for the graphic image for those at home. But here they are. And you know, the clip, I'll tell you, the team that really wowed me the most here down the stretch was the Clippers getting out of that play-in, getting a 5th seed. And with a healthy Kawhi Leonard, who has played very well here down the stretch, all of a sudden the Clippers feel like a very dangerous team here.
Very well down the stretch. See, this is what I love about the media, man. Kawhi has one good week, and all of a sudden everyone's so sold on this team. Come on, Jason. Do you really think that he's going to make it to the second series of the postseason?
Yeah,
There's no shot. It's Kawhi Leonard. We know this guy's history. There's just no chance that the Clippers are actually a team that we need to be afraid of. In the Western Conference that we've been talking about for so long is so top heavy, and now one bottom feeding team moved up 3 seeds, and all of a sudden everyone's losing their mind because Kawhi Leonard in the latter stages of his career has one week where he looks like 2019 Kawhi Leonard. That is what has happened here. No, I'm not buying it with the Clippers. This to me is still the Thunder's conference to lose, and if they're losing it to me, it's probably to the Nuggets.
I'm not saying, forget the Nuggets. My God, they just fired their head coach. Forget the Nuggets. I'm not worried about the Nuggets at this point. Kawhi Leonard, it's not just a week. It's not just a week, man. He has put together a March and April, really, frankly, since mid-March, that, is very Kawhi, prime Kawhi-esque, if you go and look at the numbers. He's playing, they played 42 and 47 minutes on Friday and Sunday. 23, 33, 23, 25, 27, 31, 21, 28, 20, 29, 22, 28, 33. That's his last, 12, 13 games. And you go back before that and look at the 6 games prior, it's the same thing. Kawhi Leonard's playing at a Kawhi Leonard level, 5-6 years ago Kawhi. And, look, there's something to be said. If you gave me your money, that crazy Sam Yarnell money, and said go and put a wager on a team, I'm not putting it on the Clippers. I'm just saying, if you're looking for a dark horse in a West that feels like Oklahoma City and a bunch of dark horses, the Clippers are as good as anybody. If you start taking all these teams and throwing them into a hat, the Clippers are as good as anybody. And right now, by the way, you can get the Clippers at 39-1 right now to win the whole thing. And to come out of the West, they are, I just want to make sure I get it right, 15-1 to come out of the West. Go ahead.
you can get the Clippers at 39
Yes.
to 1 to win the whole thing, because I definitely am not going to. Listen, Kawhi Leonard has had a great last 19 games. That is the hard number. 19 games ago is when this whole thing started. He's averaging about 25 and a half points, about 6 rebounds, and about 3 assists since, which is fine. That's great. All that. Here's the number you really need to know. 37. That's how many games Kawhi Leonard played this entire season. To win an NBA championship, you have to win 16 games. That's darn near half as many as Kawhi Leonard played the entire season.
Yep.
So again, I just can't buy that all of a sudden Kawhi Leonard's going to go on this incredible run of health that apparently he's been on for the last 2 months, and he's now going to be able to continue it for the next 2, because in the last 5 years of his career, there's no precedent that says that he'll be able to do that.
They have clearly babied him up until he made his season debut on January 4th, and I think that's paying dividends right now. And look, he's a guy, and for anybody who's followed, this whole Kawhi Leonard saga of injuries and not being able to play and the knee troubles and all this stuff, he's a guy that simply did not feel confident in that knee. And when you see him playing back-to-backs and playing heavy minutes, he's telling Ty Lue, I'm comfortable playing on this knee. Now, look, does that mean, game 2 or game 3 of the postseason, he doesn't go out and grab his knee and he's gone for the postseason? Does it mean that doesn't happen? Absolutely not. But everything that we've seen here over the last, 3 months from Kawhi Leonard tells us he's going to be healthy enough to help this team make a playoff run. Now, look, even if he's healthy, it doesn't mean they go and win this whole thing and come out of the West and be the team that upsets Oklahoma City. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, if he is on the floor for as long as the Clippers are in the postseason, they're going to be a very tough out.
And I think a completely underrated part of all this, and maybe a reason that Kawhi is potentially getting too much credit, is James Harden has also been playing incredibly well.
Yep.
Also famously one of the non-reliable players in the NBA, right? Who, again, I'm not going to rely on to be consistent throughout the whole postseason. But over his last 10 games, James Harden, about the same amount of points. So you combine those two, over the last 10 games, you're getting 50 points per game out of those two. Do I think that is consistent throughout the playoffs? I'm just going to keep harping back to the no, because I don't think that they're going to be able to combine to stay healthy for a long enough time to make a difference in this postseason.
And Zubats, by the way, big in that win yesterday against the Warriors with 22 and 17 on 11 of 16 shooting. And the Warriors will now have to go through the play-in in order to get themselves into the postseason, which should be very interesting to watch. But we get Warriors, and let's see here. We've got the Warriors. Where's my play-in? I had my play-in here in front of me. We got Warriors.
You're gonna have the Warriors against the Mavericks, and then the Grizzlies against the Kings in the West, and the Magic against the Heat.
There you go.
And the Hawks against the Bulls in the East. The Bulls once again in the play-in. Ugh.
Magic and Heat. That'll be fun.
Battle for Florida, some are calling it.
Yeah. I'm rooting for the Magic. Talented young team. I'm rooting for the Magic to take that next step. Last year, an epic series with the Cavaliers, which ended in 7 games. Let's talk some college football. 2 wildly different stories to get to next. All right, let's take it to segment 4, coming up in 10 minutes. Ryan Twining helping us recap another win for Kyle Larson. This one in Bristol under the lights. But Sammy Yarnell, a couple of wildly different college football stories to discuss. Let's get to the first one, which really broke late last week and sort of carried throughout the weekend. And that was the story of Nico Iamaleava. Did I say it right? Did I get it right? Iamaleava? Sure. That too. That'll work too. He's not on Tennessee anymore. That's what we do know. Because apparently the money just wasn't right. And look, this is something you're going to continue to see as we go through this process of college sports becoming very similar to professional sports. And, you know, and the folks at Tennessee said, all right, you know, you're not here for workouts. You're not here for practice. You know, we have no interest in having you here. And now he'll enter the transfer portal and everybody will line up to get his services. And I still have to ask, as a college football team, you look at this quarterback and his decision to basically walk out on his team over whatever, you know, dispute there was here about NIL money. And if I'm a college program and I'm looking at this guy, do I want this guy in my locker room knowing kind of what he's about at this point, Sam?
Yeah. Ia Maleava, more like go. I'm gonna leave, pretty much.
Oh, you were just dying to use that one.
I was sitting on that one for a couple minutes there. I think that this story is so funny. This is just so we're clear, this is a very, 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 very blown up version of what you and I talked about on the program with Matthew Sluka early during the season at UNLV. So a couple of interesting parts to this. Iam Aliava had been practicing with the team throughout the spring. Obviously, there was an ongoing dispute regarding his NIL with the school, and then he just decided to stop showing up to practice, and I guess then therein and enter the transfer portal as a spring transfer. So a couple of things. One, on the Nico side, wow. That's bold for sure, because, yeah, you looked okay, except for that one time you had the ball in your hands with 5 seconds left and your team was down 3, and you just ran around and then ran out of bounds, and your team lost the game.
Business decisions, man. He was making business decisions then.
I mean, people definitely aren't going to talk about that when you try to negotiate a new contract. And then you've got the Tennessee side of this, which is like, wow, you really couldn't just figure it out? Like, you were a top 10 team and a top 3 team in the SEC last year. You couldn't just figure something out with your star quarterback who was poised to be like a top 5 draft candidate whenever he came out. It's going to hurt everyone involved in this situation, Jason.
But Sam, there's a reality here, and it's this. This kid was getting paid in high school. In high school, he was getting paid. He was making $2.4 million a year to play college football on a deal that was $8 million when he signed it. And the whole life of the deal, it would have been close to $10 million. And he wanted more money. His rep said, we want $4 million. We wanted an increased deal. He didn't deserve to get an increase to $4 million. He didn't do anything that justified him getting an increase to $4 million. And again, it's still mind-blowing that this is college football we're talking about, and we're having these conversations now about money, and it has completely changed the game, and not for the better. I don't mind talking about this stuff when it comes to guys that have paid their dues and gone through their time in college and go into the NFL, and we talk about contract situations and all this stuff pops up. I don't want to talk about this in college football. It is killing it for me. I don't want to talk about it. I really don't.
I get it. I get it, but I think that there's an element to it that's like, this is just where we're at in the sports world. I don't think it's going away. Paying athletes at the college level, to me, is just not going away anytime soon.
Oh, no, it's not. And that's been made clear with NIL. No. And there's NIL, and there's going to be this salary cap that winds up getting, put into Division I college athletics. And it's going to be the downfall of a lot of these smaller Division I schools that we're seeing, St. Francis of Pennsylvania, which quietly just basically is going to Division III after this season. A program that we saw in the NCAA tournament that is now going to Division III. A St. Francis of Brooklyn, which basically closed its college sports program down, a couple of years ago because they just can't compete. So you're going to wind up with all these, power 49 schools that are going to be out there. And everybody else is just going to be left to sort of sit it out because they're not going to be able to compete in this world with all this money here. One last thing to get to. Kyron Lacey, the former LSU wide receiver, apparently took his own life after being involved in a hit and run and then being pursued by police. This hit and run had taken place some time back, and he was being investigated and was out on bond and all of this. Well, apparently this weekend, during another pursuit with police where they were going after him and he was in his car, took his own life in his car. A terrible story, a terrible ending to somebody who once had such a promising future. Just awful story all around, but wanted to make sure we got it in here before we wrapped up the segment. And I'm sure we'll learn more about it in the coming days as to what led to this decision for him to have taken his own life. All right, we are coming back. We've got more to do on the show. Some NASCAR, a race in Bristol. We'll get to it next. Coming up in 10 minutes, odds and ends. The end for somebody in New Orleans. The start for somebody in a new, relatively new basketball league. Just some of the topics we'll touch on in odds and ends. Well, let's talk some NASCAR. Ryan Twining is here because it's a Monday and it's our wraparound NASCAR segment. We preview the race on Friday. We recap it on Monday. And we won't have anything to recap or preview for next weekend because there won't be any racing next weekend, at least not in NASCAR's Cup Series. So Brian Twining hangs out with us. Bleacher Nation does a great job on NASCAR and auto racing. And Kyle Larson wins this weekend. He also wins the Xfinity race, so we'll get to that in just a moment. And obviously a very good weekend for him, his second win of the year. And as we approach the bye week here, what does Larson's win sort of say about where we are in this NASCAR season? Because this was as dominating a performance as we've seen from any driver this year.
Yeah, this was basically just a duplication of what we saw in the fall race, which came as a massive surprise to everybody in NASCAR, the teams, the drivers, especially us bettors after what we saw on practice, with the tires looking like it was going to be a duplication of what we saw in the spring, where they had to get an extra set of tires issued out by Goodyear. And it just winds up being another masterclass by Kyle Larson, being the best gladiator at the last great Coliseum once again, leading over 400 laps, absolutely spanking the field in what is supposed to be the top echelon of the sport, making everybody else look like they're in subpar equipment to him. And I think as we head to the break, it just reinvigorates the 5 team for being possibly the championship favorite after kind of suffering a few races where he wasn't necessarily on top of his game. And maybe Christopher Bell or Denny Hamlin, as we were coming into Bristol, had maybe jumped him in terms of being the championship favorite.
Going into the bye, if I give you 3 drivers and say, tell me which one has been, despite number of wins, all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. If I give you Bell, Hamlin, Larson, who's been the best driver so far this year? Oh, I love it. He's thinking. I love it.
It's a difficult decision to make because Kyle Larson's variance in races is so high. I mean, we call him checkers or wreckers because he's either finishing first or he has such a high probability of DNFing. Whereas somebody like Denny Hamlin, even if he's not running well, like yesterday, he wasn't the best car. He didn't have the speed to catch up to him. He still finishes second. And then Christopher Bell, maybe his toolbox isn't as full as, say, a Kyle Larson is right now, but he's also somebody, I mean, he won 3 consecutive races. But I think I would probably have to say Kyle Larson is the favorite just because of how good he can be on every single weekend. And you don't see other drivers beating the field in a way like he has done the last 2 times we've gone to Bristol, regardless of where we go or their strengths at certain tracks. So I would say Kyle Larson, and then it would probably be a tie between Denny and Christopher Bell based on track type.
Best drive is Larson the best driver in the world?
I think that's a very polarizing argument to make. It's difficult to try to say that because he's never driven an F1 car, which is much different than an Indy car. Obviously, it doesn't translate at all to a stock car, so that's hard to talk about. And we've never seen Max Verstappen or any of the other F1 guys jump into a stock car to see really what they got at the moment.
Do you wish we saw more of that? Doing what Larson does and jumping into an Indy car.
Like the crossover?
Yeah.
Personally,
would it be great for the sport, just motorsports in general?
Yeah, I think personally, though, I would like to see it in an exhibition type race, not in points paying races, because I think that does a disservice to the rest of the field who is battling for points to get into the playoffs and stuff like that. I mean, it would be essentially like saying a Major League Baseball team could bring over the best Japanese player on like a borrowed contract for a week just to get some publicity during the regular season in a playoff battle. Like, to me, that's not good for the sport. Personally,
I actually like the idea of exhibitions like that, though, because I think it would drum up interest in the sport in a time of year maybe where people aren't thinking about NASCAR. I mean, you've got an off season and there's opportunities to do something like that. I kind of like the idea. Larson won the Xfinity race as well. It's not the first time this year he's run an Xfinity race. Why are you laughing? Why are you smiling? Do you not like him running Xfinity races?
It's another interesting argument within the NASCAR community is whether or not Cup guys should be dropping down to the lower series. And just, I mean,
is it the equivalent of Aaron Judge going and playing a week in AAA? Is that what you're going to say?
It kind of, I think it's good for the youngsters to kind of be able to learn based off of what he does. And I think a lot of them take it as a challenge. It does suck, again, going back to what I said about those guys are in a playoff hunt, and it's basically removing an all-important win from one of those guys, just kind of expecting Kyle Larson to go out, or any Cup guy for that matter, to go out there and spank the field and wind up taking a win, which locks somebody else into the playoffs.
Okay, fair enough. Who needs this bye week the most?
Honestly, I would probably say this is going to come to a surprise for some people, but I would say Ryan Blaney. With the heartbreak that has occurred for him so far this season, being the fastest car at numerous races and not getting the result that he necessarily should have. I mean, we're looking at a guy that should have multiple wins already this year based on pure speed. And even this last race, he couldn't get a caution when he needed it, where the previous week he got a caution where he didn't need it.
Yeah, it's true. Brian Twining, always good work. Appreciate it. Bleacher Nation, check him out there. We'll talk to you next week, and enjoy the bye week. Get some rest.
Thank you.
All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Monday. Couple of reminders before we say goodbye. Make sure to check out the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. You can listen to the show Monday through Friday. Platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon, anywhere you get a podcast, you can get this show, so make sure to go and subscribe. You could also watch the show on Spotify, and you could watch the show on YouTube. We have a new YouTube channel, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page. YouTube channel available on YouTube. Shocker. Go and check that out. Clips from the show, extended conversations. Ryan Ballengee and I basically did an entire second golf segment that you didn't get to see on this show today. You know where you can see it? The Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Go and check that out as well. And without any further delay, it's time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends. It is the end for Paige Beckers when it comes to her collegiate career at the University of Connecticut. It is just the beginning for her as a professional, though, and she is going to be one heck of a professional. And she has already made it clear she's not just going into the WNBA. No. She signed a 3-year deal with Unrivaled, that 3-on-3 women's basketball league, which we saw throughout the winter months here. Paige Beckers is going to be a part of that. Still noticeably not part of that is Caitlin Clark. And you wonder if it's just a matter of time, with all the star power that league has, if Caitlin Clark eventually decides, once she's gotten rested, once she's, sort of gotten her schedule figured out, if it's just a matter of time before Caitlin Clark joins, because Paige Beckers is going to be a part of it. And Paige Beckers, by the way, is going to be so good in the WNBA. I can't wait to watch her. Obviously, finally getting her national championship with Gino Auriemma at UConn. All right, odds and ends. The end for David Griffin as VP of basketball operations with the New Orleans Pelicans. And look, let's be honest, it was not a great tenure. And a lot of that has been led by the decision to draft Zion Williamson and everything that has come from that. And by the way, it wasn't the wrong decision to draft Zion Williamson. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. They have been hit with a litany of injuries in that organization over recent years. And they tried to deal some of the parts away and tried to make some changes within that organization, but ultimately it did not pan out, and David Griffin is out of work with the New Orleans Pelicans, and a franchise that, look, it's just been an enormous struggle. I have gone on the record as saying, though, that I think next year Zion Williamson's going to play a lot of basketball, and I think he's going to be really good. They shut him down towards the end of this season, and that was probably just to try and improve their odds for getting the number 1 overall pick and maybe a shot at Cooper Flagg in the draft. But I still think the best years for Zion Williamson have yet to come. And for David Griffin, he will probably not see those years unless something crazy happens and the team hires him back, which I don't think is going to happen because they let him go today. Last but not least, news from the NFL, because who could leave us? How do we leave you without talking about the NFL for an entire show? Well, there was a big signing in the NFL, or a big contract extension, and it comes for the Chicago Bears, who make Kyler Gordon the highest paid corner in the league. 3 years, $40 million. $31 million of that is guaranteed. So he's the highest paid slot corner now in the league at the age of 25. It was a big priority in this offseason for Ryan Poles, and they make the move to get Kyler Gordon locked up under contract. And that's a big move for that team, who seems to be making a lot of smart, long-term moves that gives you a sense that if you're a Bears fan, Caleb Williams being what he was last year, and showing the talent and the ability that he has, you get the feeling that the Chicago Bears right now are going in the right direction. Now, ultimately, this all boils down to wins and losses, and we could sit here all day and sort of bang our heads against the wall trying to figure out what some of these offseason moves mean. But for the Chicago Bears, feels like they've set themselves up in this offseason about as well as they can to be competitive in an NFC that, unlike the AFC, is a lot more wide open. I know that the Eagles are obviously your Super Bowl champions, and it goes without saying they're the team to beat going into the 2025-2026 season, or the 2025 season as it would be. But there's a lot of room after the Eagles when you talk about the NFC for who's the next best team after that, because there's a big drop off. Whereas in the AFC, the competition is far more difficult. The competition is far more challenging when you sort of look at the landscape in the AFC, and it feels like there's a group of 6 or 7 teams that are just entrenched at the top of the conference. The NFC isn't built that way. So there's going to be opportunities if you're a team that can make a leap in this offseason, make the right moves in the draft. And I think Ryan Poles did a great thing getting Kyler Gordon locked up. All right, that's going to wrap it up for us on this Monday edition of Sports Wrap. Thank you to our guests. Always love chatting with Ryan Ballengee, Golf News Net. Thank you to Brian Twining for hanging out with us, talking about some NASCAR as they go into the bye week. We'll take a week off from NASCAR on Friday and Monday this week. Thank you to Sam Yarnell as well for hanging out with us on the show. Thanks to you for watching. That does it. Sports Wrap in the books for this Monday. We'll see you back here on Tuesday.